everyone. Welcome to this week's Cyber Conversation brought to you by Peraton. My name is Janessa Palmieri, and on behalf of Peraton, we are proud to partner with Cyber to bring you these weekly conversations. For those of you who are joining us today for the first time, Cyber is a program out of Dakota State University in Madison, South Dakota, that works to motivate, empower, and educate young women in cybersecurity. Just a reminder, at the bottom of your screen, you can ask a question via the Q&A. I am very honored to introduce today's speaker, Aneesa Husain. Aneesa is a cybersecurity copywriter at Keyavi Data, the founder of Girls Who Code, Capital Region, a digital literacy consultant at USCRI, a mentor to girls entering the tech field, a conference speaker, a cyber career mentor at Springboard, and a huge advocate for bridging the gender gap within the tech sector. Thank you so much for being here today, Aneesa.
Thank you so much, Janessa, for that intro, and thank you again to Cyber for having me, and I'm so glad to kind of start this conversation today. So I guess I'll just go kind of into my background, how I got here and, my career path and what that looks like. And please ask questions because I like this to be really interactive. So if I'm saying something and a question pops in your mind, just ask it. You don't have to wait till the end. Of course, I will be doing questions at the end, but, feel free to have those rapid fire throughout this whole time. So I guess back in the, to start us off, I kind of was interested in technology and working with computers ever since I was younger. So it started off with like burning CDs for my dad when he would be like, hey, I want this lecture on a CD. And I had to figure out how to do that. So I did. And then that kind of got me into like using technology more. So he would be like a resident IT person, even though he has like a field, his profession is in chemistry, but he, would be fixing the router and troubleshooting the Wi-Fi at home. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. So I decided to enter college and I was undecided. I wasn't really sure what it is that I wanted to do. And then I took my first information technology class. It wasn't even a class on cybersecurity. It was an information technology topics class, which is a general education class for those of you who are in college and know what I'm talking about. So it was required. And for someone like me, who had zero major declared, I was like, all right, well, let me just take my first gen ed, my freshman year, and call it a day. So I took this class. And my professor was going through all the topics, networking, social media, computer science in general, and kind of walking through those steps until he talked about ethical hacking. I had never heard of this before. And I was just like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like, I like what that is. Tell me more. And what he was just talking about was the fact that it's just hacking for good. So someone like me with no role models in cybersecurity who looked like me, especially, I was like, I never even knew hacking was good whatsoever. I thought it was, hood in the back in the basement, like we were talking about before the call started. So I really just thought, okay, tell me more. Like, what is this? What do you actually do? So we dove into our security unit, and he was really just talking about writing scripts and learning how to use these programming languages to help organizations instead of hurt organizations. And that for me, honestly, was kind of it. I was like, okay, you can use a piece of technology to help others. And that's really what I declared my major like the next semester, and I decided to focus on information technology. So I went to school at the University of Albany in upstate New York, and I declared my major as IT. And then we have specializations within that major. So those specializations range from databases to social media usage to networking to game design, whatever. And cybersecurity was one of those concentrations. So after I took my first like intro to security processes class, I decided to declare my major within cybersecurity, again, for that reason, to be able to help others while using technology. And that's kind of been the thing that stuck with me throughout my whole career. And, I'll get into my career path, but really just expanded my security knowledge, in school, taking college classes, graduated in 2016. But during that time, I worked on the college help desk. So that's where those troubleshooting skills really came into play, and an extreme practice, right? So not only understanding how technology works and what you need to do with it, but also how to explain that to others. And something I want to talk to you guys about is it's super important to be able to explain technical topics. That's something that when you learn at such a young age, that will stay with you for your entire career. It will, no matter what, it's not even a technical topic, just learning how to explain something to others, it's going to take you so far. So I started, my first IT job was on the SUNY help desk, and I was helping professors navigate technical issues remotely. And I worked on Sundays for 8 hours, and that was, my first IT job, and I loved it. So after that, I navigated into an IT internship role. So, and how did I find that? Another tip I'll give you, I found that on Craigslist. Two of my initial roles in information technology I found on Craigslist because they were small business owners looking for a college student to really help revamp their game. They wanted a young, fresh mind to kind of just come in and tell them how to use technology, right? So again, this is where my help desk skills came into play. I was able to teach doctors. I worked at Access Healthcare, which is in upstate New York. They were a team of probably 10 people they were sharing like 5 computers, and they had like one username for all of them, and just really bad security practices. So just simple things like that. You don't have to be an expert. Remember, you got to start in steps. And that's something else that I really have learned in my career is you can never go from 0 to penetration tester overnight. It's just not going to happen. You've got to start in steps. So we started in really attainable steps. Like, first of all, let's create user accounts for each user with a separate password. And to us, we might be like, okay, that's a no-brainer. Why weren't they doing that before? But these are people who were 50, 60, 70 years old, who were near the end of their career. They don't really care. Cybersecurity wasn't around in their time. So again, understanding that if people don't implement cybersecurity rules or security protocol, think why. Think about, okay, is that because they're choosing not to? Ignorance is one thing, and there are a lot of people out there who are, but also lack of knowledge and lack of awareness is another huge part, which is kind of why I've focused my career on user training, user awareness, and really just making people aware of security protocols and security skill sets, etc. So after I was at Access Health Systems, I graduated. That was in tandem with my graduation. So I got my first full-time role, kind of stepping in the same healthcare direction. And I worked at a more large healthcare organization as an IT security analyst. This was my first full-time role. And again, I was not doing anything penetration testing, wasn't doing anything ethical hacking related, nothing like that. I mean, in reality, I was focused on governance, risk, and compliance and audits and how to navigate HIPAA. And I never even heard of HIPAA in a work setting before that. So having to kind of implement those controls and work with auditors coming in and asking me for evidence and proof that your accounts were secure, that was a game changer for me. And that really, again, structured my career in user training, because we were having, database engineers who were just using one admin account for the whole database team. So we had an auditor come in and they're like, that can't happen, because if one person gets access to someone's account, your whole database is going to be penetrated, right? So thinking about these prevention techniques to prevent such risk and such vulnerability, again, keep that with you throughout your whole career. And that's something that I kept with me. So my focus there was, again, working on audits, working on recertifications, making sure user accounts were secure. This was very user focused. After that, I transitioned to digital forensics, and I worked for Center for Internet Security, which you've heard of the CIS 20 controls. That's what CIS is. And that was really great experience for me to detect malware, understand how to work with a hard drive, an image of a hard drive, and really get down, again, using research and analysis to find how an attacker got onto a system. So you'll never believe it, and I love to tell the story because one of my biggest cases that I worked on was for a state in the Midwest, which I will not name because I can't for legal reasons, but they had their police department completely hacked. So after we spent about 2 or 3 weeks on trying to find evidence and digging into their hard drive, find out what happened, it was because the main police officer had his password for his police car. His password was password. I kid you not. A police officer's password was password, and a hacker penetrated by guessing that, and then their entire police system software was brought down. And you can imagine all the information that the attacker wanted to get and did end up getting because such a simple thing. It's so simple. So that's why awareness is super important. And I like to focus on this because awareness doesn't just mean, hey, Janessa, make your password secure because I said so. That's not awareness, right? Awareness goes hand in hand with training, and training is explaining what could happen if you don't do these things. So again, keep those explanation tools in mind when you go through your career. So after that, I worked for a company called Dataminer in New York City, and I was a domain expert for cybersecurity. So Dataminer is just a newsroom organization, and we had 1.5 people on our cyber team, so it wasn't a lot of people. And what we did was we broke news, right? So we're kind of scouring social media sites, we're scouring the internet to find new vulnerabilities, new malware, anything that could be a threat to someone, and then we're breaking that as news, just like ABC breaks a burglar in a neighborhood, right? Same thing. So our clients, though, on the cybersecurity side were the FBI, the NYPD, things like that. So news that we broke was extremely relevant and had to be extremely accurate, of course. So again, this really utilizes the analytical portion. And you'll see that I keep saying this because in most of my career, that's been super important. But I digress. So after this was really when I kind of made the shift in my mentality. So up until this point, I had been, attending a public university. I've been working in corporate cybersecurity roles. And then I came across this organization called Girls Who Code. And I was like, whoa, that's really cool because there are not a lot of girls in technology, not a lot of minority girls in technology. So I want to learn more. So I went through their site and they were looking for facilitators. And I saw that there was no Girls Who Code chapter in Albany or within 50 miles of there that were still active and still had meetings. People had tried to start them. And again, I'm not tooting my own horn because it's very hard. So I totally understand why things don't go on because you lose support, right? You can't run something if you don't have support. So I looked into this and I was like, that's something I want to do. I really want to do this. So I was in between my 2 roles. So I had ended my job at Dataminer and I moved back to upstate, and I had a couple months before I was starting my next role. So that's when I was like, well, what's a better time to kind of get this club up and running and work through the steps that I need to. So I, first of all, marketed my club and I marketed myself. And I think that was something that's super hard for me. It's still really hard for me, telling people what you're doing and repeatedly saying it, right? On Facebook, you make a group, you make a page, you're begging people to join and spread the word. And you have to do those things. It's a growing pain. I know it's like, you don't want to be in the spotlight, but you need to, because otherwise people won't know that it exists. So for me, it was navigating one of my first bosses, actually. She was, and she is still a reference of mine till this day, which another word of advice, don't burn bridges with people because they will be your biggest supporters down the line. So she was my first boss. I ended up babysitting her daughter for many years, and her daughter was my first member. So, and she is a dancer. She had zero idea about technology. She never looked at herself as a coder. And we went through it. And so I had 3 people at my information session. And I'm like, okay, if I have 3 people at my info session, that means probably one of these people are going to be a member. That's not a lot of people. That's very easy for this to go south. But I still stuck with it. And I started spreading the word a lot more. So I told her, please share this with other people. Please, spread the word. Please tell people to come. Please just share this. I was sharing on Facebook. I made a Facebook page for the club. I started sharing images, made a logo, did all this, right? Like it was my own brand, but it was just all that information was provided to me from Girls Who Code. So I didn't have to prepare any content, really. It was just marketing and putting myself to teach it. So fast forward to our first meeting, where I think like 16 girls showed up the first meeting, which was like a couple weeks after the info session. And we were rocking. We were ready to go. We kept going. And the big part of that was girls who were in that club. The primary reason they stayed was because there was nothing else like it, right? There was no other club out there where other girls and other minority girls were also doing the same thing, learning together, failing together, having a fun time. I remember one of the first meetings, I said to the girls, I'm like, you're going to fail, and that's okay. And they're like, fail? Like, you want us to fail? And I'm like, I mean, I don't want you to fail, but I'm being realistic. You are going to fail, and it's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's work through it. And I think that, element of being realistic with them really helped them understand and navigate. We did Python the first year with the first set of girls, HTML the second year, and now we're doing HTML again. This is our third year. But anyway, that's really about Girls Who Code and how I started that. And again, super blessed that we're still up and running. I mean, our previous meeting for this session, our first meeting was yesterday, and I didn't facilitate it. I have a college student assisting me with that. So she told me that 10 girls joined, and this is post-COVID, this is remote, and we still have a decent number of people joining for the third year straight. So it's really something that I'm proud of. And what I will say is that if I can do it, you definitely can do it. So if it's not Girls Who Code that's a chapter you're starting, find something that doesn't exist and take the initiative to start it. Because for me, like, I wanted to have a role model and be a role model that I never had. So that doesn't mean I'm going to be a strict parent with these girls. I'm not. Of course, we had mutual respect. We had, fun, obviously, but there were also times where it's like, okay, let's work through this. Let's sit down. It's never talking down. It's really working together to achieve a project. So the sisterhood factor of that, I think, is something that really kept the girls interested and really, helped them continue and really enjoy it. So, I mean, I can clearly spend the entire half an hour talking about that, so I'll move on. But that's really what opened my eyes into the education piece and into really direct training and really wanting to deliver training, education, instruction, and really being a mentor. So I worked at a local nonprofit in Albany, New York, again, called Can Code Communities. And I started as a lead instructor for them. And then I, was promoted to an instructional development manager there. But what I was able to do was, one, get exposure to teaching classes, like full-time teaching classes, not just volunteer. And I led summer camps with kids as young as the age of 8, and then had students as old as 68 in my adult classes. And it was just cybersecurity all around, and it was just really great. And then, well, what happened was they didn't have any cybersecurity classes. So they were a technical nonprofit and had no classes geared to cyber. So I was like, would you be okay with running it if I designed it and if I taught it. She was like, yeah, go ahead, do it if you really want to. And of course I did. So it's kind of find out in your career where these opportunities are for you to make moves and make the move. And you will have ownership on an entire project and see it from start to finish. So I designed a cybersecurity fundamentals course in relation to automated web testing. And again, opened up my eyes to other opportunities. And my boss there recommended me to another local college, Mildred Ellie Institute. And I taught 2 classes there as an adjunct professor. So I taught intro to computer concepts. I taught a network security class, kind of just assisted and taught that part-time, whatever semester I had availability for a year. And then really that led me into, okay, seeing the level of students that we had, understanding where the biggest gap is. So when Janessa introduced me, she mentioned that I enjoy bridging the gender gap and the minority gap. And I think that they're both super important and go hand in hand, because there are not a lot of women in tech, but there's also not a lot of minorities in cybersecurity in general. Those go very separately. So when you have a minority woman in cybersecurity, you're the extreme minority. So it's, again, really wanting to be that change that, I just didn't see in my entire career. So I started as a digital literacy consultant for USCRI, which is just a committee for refugees and immigrants entering the country, and just working with them to really deliver technical support. So this was in person, sitting with them. How do you print a bank statement? How do you make an online payment? How do you simply do a Windows update on your computer, right? These are things that we as Americans take for granted, that people who enter this country literally they were never taught this, right? So really being able to get down to that granular level, again, use that education portion. I told you it followed me throughout my career, but really be able to educate others and teach them in that regard. So that led me to be working at Keyavi Data right now as a cybersecurity copywriter. So what I do is I literally just write cybersecurity documentation for various audiences. So whether that's engineers, for them to understand how to implement our product in their environment, whether that's for our website blog, if we need to talk about a specific piece of ransomware that's, floating around right now. If I need to put together like a Visio or a flow chart for explaining exactly how our technology works, whatever. So again, it's utilizing my communication. I forgot to mention this. I minored in communications in college. So this is the first time in my career I get to use my communications degree. But it's really meshing the two, meshing communications and meshing cybersecurity and kind of putting that together. But my majority of what I do is just writing technical documentation and explaining that to other folks. So, I also am a mentor for Springboard. I'm a mentor for Code Ninjas in upstate New York, for just really providing that mentorship, providing that explanation to others. And how to navigate their career, because I've been through it. I've struggled a lot. I've had a lot of failure moments. So really just being able to shed that light and build confidence is kind of my goal. But I think I maybe went over for a couple minutes. So I would love to take questions in the last couple minutes, but that's kind of a little about my career and how I got here.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thanks.
You are so inspirational.
Thank you.
It's not every day that we get to see someone who can, talk and share their experiences like you did. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
When you were talking about coding, someone sent me a screenshot on an Instagram account just yesterday. It's about someone overheard a couple kids talking. So there's a boy who asked, "What are you doing for Christmas?" And the girl says, "Coding camp." And the boy says, "You're such a girl. All you ever talk about is coding and math. And I'm like, oh my God, okay.
We're changing the game.
We're changing it. We're flipping the
great.
table.
I
So it
love
just
that.
kind of reminded me of when you were talking, it reminded me of that screenshot. So
That's awesome. I want that to be my future daughter.
yes,
That's great.
that is just so awesome.
Thank
So
you.
is there a specific, so over your career, right, you have had many roles. Was there a specific one that you were particularly attached to more than the others?
So I'll answer this in two parts. First one, it was my first full-time role was an IT security analyst role. And I'm not going to say that I was particularly attached to doing healthcare audits in the IT field, but what attached me to understanding the importance of mentorship was my boss. And he was a male, he wasn't a female, but he till this day is the greatest mentor I've ever had. I mean, he pushed me to lead projects that I never even believed that I could breathe about. And he put me in the forefront to lead meetings and really, really built my confidence. And I think if I had had a different manager, maybe I wouldn't be in this field right now. I mean, so I will say that I'm super connected to that role and that team just because I was the only female, I was the youngest, and I was one of two minorities. So, and it was just like to be able to be pushed up by all of these men in the field was something that I was like, that's amazing. And I think that will stay with me forever. And I will always be indebted to them because of the growth and the amount that they push me. And I think the second part to that is my role as an instructor at Albany Can Code, which is now Can Code Communities, because again, just really kind of getting my foot in the door to be able to instruct with people from all ages and all walks of life. And then, which also led me to design my own course and understand all the pitfalls of that. So I think that that's how I would answer that question with those two roles.
Awesome. We have a question from our audience. What's something that you're proud of in your career?
I am proud of the fact that I never gave up. I think, again, you know, I'm not going to play the minority card and play the woman card, but I'm going to play the minority card and play the woman card. Sometimes it's really hard to feel confident and feel like you're unstoppable in a field where not everyone looks like you and you're probably the only one who looks like you. And there was a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of you know, thinking you can't do it, of course. And I think just not giving up and not letting the setbacks define me and kind of use that as motivation, because everything aligned itself somehow. I mean, maybe if I thought in the moment that was like, oh God, I should have done that differently, or I should have stayed at this company longer, whatever, they all aligned and it all, you know, it all really worked out. And I think the fact that I stuck with that and didn't give up is something I am really proud of. Thanks for asking that.
Awesome.
I see the question.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So 3 tips for someone looking for a job in cybersecurity. That's a good question. Okay, first tip is you have to have a good resume. Unfortunately, I've hired people before. I've been on hiring committees. I hate that resumes are such a determining factor, but they are, and that's a reality of what we're looking at right now. So don't write a resume that's paragraphs long and blah, 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 because people are looking at the first page and people are looking for bullet points of things you've accomplished. So focus on the main points that you've accomplished, the main, you know, things that you can say you're proud of, and highlight those on your resume. Second tip is be open to anything. You're not going to find your dream job as your first job, but I will bet my life that it's going to teach you something and it's going to stay with you for the rest of your career. Remember that you're just starting out. So just remember that when applying for jobs and be open to it. And third of all is, like I just said about myself, I mean, don't give up. right? Have full faith in your abilities, full confidence in yourself. You achieve something, you have the qualifications to apply, so run it through, go through with that, see it out. The worst that they're going to do is send you an automated rejection letter. Okay, it's fine, it's life, but at least you sent the application. You can say that you did that and really be proud of yourself. So I think those are 3 tips I would say.
Those are actually excellent tips, especially the
Thanks, I'm
last
glad.
one, to never give up.
It's
Because
so
there
important.
are, I know, I mean, there are so many times where you feel like, oh man, it would be so easy to just like leave it, to just give up. But then you just have to push past it, somehow push past it.
Somehow, I mean, yeah, whether that's your support system, whether that's your whatever, someone, a professor in school, your loved one, your family, your friends, whoever that is, but the voices who are supporting you, you just listen to them because they're supporting you for a reason. So stick with that for sure.
I will take one last question. Is there any advice that you would give to your younger self and to girls who are interested in cybersecurity?
You have to be willing to break things. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I like to tell people but don't give everyone the benefit of the doubt, because it's going to help you throughout your career in security. So, I mean, think about it. Your life in security is understanding where things are broken so you can fix them, right? In whatever aspect that may be. So as a younger person, I mean, I was very talkative. I thought, like, looking back at home videos, I'm like, oh my God, shut up, you're so annoying. And now it's just like, that helped me in my career. I mean, that helped me with confidence, and that really helped. So don't look at those things as negative things about yourself, right? If you like troubleshooting, act on it. If you like fixing things, act on it, because there's probably a place for you in technology where you can use those soft skills to really excel more than a super technical person. So just keep that in mind, because that's something I would have told myself for sure.
Thank you, Aneesa.
Yeah,
You have given such like amazing advice tonight to both
thanks.
To both K through 12 and collegiate women, including me and
Okay,
Conti. So
great.
thank you so much.
Of course.
I'm opening up a quick poll, and we really appreciate all of our viewers to complete this poll so we can know a little bit more about you. And then also please follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where this conversation will be in a couple weeks. And check out our website, cyper.org, for more Cyper conversations. Thank you, Aneesa, again.
Yeah, thanks so much. Bye, guys. It was really
Bye.
great. Thank you again for having me.